Hey, what's up guys? John here. 13,000 auto workers just went on strike.
Members of the United Auto Workers Union have gone on strike in the United States.
Thousands of workers striking at the heart of American auto manufacturing, walking off the job at Detroit's big three automakers.
And they are demanding a whopping 40% raise, a 40% raise.
Record profits equal record contracts. It's our time. And all we want is our share of equity.
The same rate as their CEO's pay grew in the recent few years. You think about what's actually happening. You look at what's going on behind the scenes. This is an attack on capitalism. It's an attack on business. And it's not just going to start and end here. This is going to be spreading to many companies nationwide. And as this begins to happen, a lot of these CEOs, a lot of these executives are going to look for ways in which they can reduce their exposure to these employees, which I believe is going to fuel automation. It's going to start to fuel robotics. It's going to start to fuel their demand to start to take risk off this table, right? And that's what's ultimately going to happen. The government's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and demand that things start to go the way in which they're pushing right here. I'm going to show you the facts. I'm going to show you what's going on here. Please hit the like button. When you hit the like button, YouTube will share this content to educate the people about what's really going on. And if you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, any negative item on your credit report, do not let it sit there. One late payment can sit on your report for upwards of 7 years. 7 years, drop your score a whopping 180 points. Go to greatcreditfast.com. Maybe you want to start your own business. You want business credit. You're going to need good credit to get it. Go to greatcreditfast.com. Go to greatcreditfast.com, click the link below. Take a look at this. This is crazy. Thousands of United Auto Workers members are officially on strike after having 3 Detroit automakers fail to reach an agreement with the union, which represents about 146,000 workers at Ford, GM, and Stellantis. But on Thursday, as Thursday night deadline hit, one major issue on the table is workers' pay. The union proposed a 40% hour pay increase over the next 4 years. The average U.S. auto worker on a manufacturing production line earns about $28 an hour. Well, in California, fast food workers now are going to go from $15 an hour to $20 per hour. So the government is going to start to demand these massive pay increases to combat inflation. But the business owner, the entrepreneur that started that company, they're not the one that created inflation. The government's creating inflation. And so as the government's policies start to make things worse, they're going to demand things in which a lot of these businesses are not going to be able to meet without the help of automation, without the help of taking risk off the table with human capital. According to data from Bureau of Labor Statistics, that's up $1 from the previous year. Auto workers pay at the big three work on a tiered system, which was introduced in the aftermath of the 2008 auto industry crisis, where more recent hires start at the lower rates of pay more tenured workers. Top tier workers, those hired in 2007 or earlier, earn an average of $33 per hour, right? $33 an hour. But look at what Biden said. This is very fascinating. He said these companies have made significant offers. Biden said in his speech at the White House, but I believe they should go further to ensure record corporate profits mean record contracts for UAW. He said, auto companies have seen record profits, including the last few years, but with the extraordinary skill and sacrifice of the UAW workers, those record profits have not been shared fairly with the workers. When you start a business, you take on substantial risk. In many cases, you're putting your credit score on the line, you're putting your house on the line, people are taking out home equity lines of credit, second mortgages to start companies. They're putting everything on the line. They're putting their marriages on the line. If that business fails and you lose that house, it's going to be a good chance your significant other is going to go through a really hard time adjusting to that. A lot of people step into divorces and the split ups and families start to get divided during the difficult times. And that's, the risk you take as an entrepreneur. You swing the bat, sometimes you strike out. But when you're an employee, you don't take that same level of risk. You can either take the job, you can, resign from the job, you can, constantly look for more work. You have options, right? You have flexibility. You're not taking any risk in relation to the CEO or executive. And to assume that the right thing to do here is if the business is making more money, that all the workers should be making more money. Well, it's just not the way that it works, and hopefully it doesn't work like that in the future. It's unfortunate because what we're starting to see here is the government reaching into the pockets of everyone. Even if, in fact, this does happen in the short term, is it going to last long term? Is it going to last long term? I don't think so. I believe just the California workers, what happened there, increasing wages from $15 per hour to $20 per hour, sure, it gives some short-term relief, But if you're the executive of that company, if you own that fast food restaurant chain, are you going to sit there and every single year get hit with a bigger and bigger and bigger pay increase? Meanwhile, it becomes a much more litigious society. You're opening yourself up to more legal exposure and lawsuits. You have workers that don't really want to work. A lot of them don't show up. What are you going to do, right? You're going to start to really lean in to automating that entire process. And this, what they're supporting right here, what they're sponsoring, this is never for to assist with combating inequality. This is to push, I believe, a real motive towards a universal basic income. They're going to really start to push dependence. Government, big government has the answers to everyone's problems. Allow us to step forward and defend the little guy. But that's not what's going to ultimately happen. We agree with Joe Biden when he says record profits mean record contracts, Fain said. We don't agree with the negotiations have broken down. Nearly 13,000 auto workers went on strike after contract talks ended Thursday without an agreement. Workers are striking GM's mid-size truck and full-size van plant. I mean, look at what's going on right now in California. In California, they have all these new green energy initiatives for truckers. And if you look at the fact that 1 in 3 items in America has to pass through a California port, starting in January, a lot of these trucks are going to have to meet new emission guidelines, which is going to be a very big problem for a lot of these trucking companies, right? The auto industry is under full-fledged attack. There's no doubt about that. The gas-powered vehicles as a whole, all of this is under a big attack. And I think that we're walking into a situation that is going to be devastating for freedom. It's going to be devastating for liberty. It's going to be devastating for all Americans, whether you are a business owner, whether you're an employee, whether you're retired. Looking at the direction in which this country is going, looking at the direction of where they are trying to take this is really concerning. It's really concerning. We go on to say, meanwhile, Ford CEO Jim Farley earned $21 million in total compensation last year. Well, don't you think that someone working on the factory line, right? They're taking on a certain type of risk, sure. But when you are the CEO of a company, managing thousands and thousands of employees, really putting everything on the line, don't you think you take a different type of risk, right? You can't simply say that someone working on the factory line deserves the same type of compensation, same type of salary, same type of benefits as someone that most likely has probably worked his tail off his entire life, went to school for 10 years plus, probably worked at the company for a decade plus, as he had kind of climbed the ladder. It's a completely different type of relationship. The CEO of Stellantis said he made $24.8 million. According to Detroit Free Press, and GM CEO Mary Barra earned $29 million in 2022. Obviously, CEOs should be the highest paid person in an enterprise, but the question is exactly how much higher than everyone else. CEO pay at the big three has grown 40% in the last decade, according to EPI, in line with UAW's demand for 40% pay increases for auto workers. UAW President Shawn Fain said Wednesday that Ford had offered 20% increase over 4 years of the deal, followed by GM at 18% and Stellantis at 17.5%. GM raised their offer to 20% wage increase. I mean, that is incredible. A 20% wage increase, still no deal, right? If they do take 40%, let's just say, for example, they say, you know what, we'll go GM, we'll go from 20%, we'll go to 40, we'll meet your demands. Do you think next year or the year after that, there won't be further demands, right? Realistically, there's going to be more and more demands. That's why, in my opinion, you should never deal with someone that is, issuing these types of threats, right? You want to come to an amicable agreement. You want to come to a deal in which makes sense for both parties, but a deal in which you're simply being taken advantage of, like these auto conglomerates are, it's very concerning. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you think that it's right that 13,000 auto workers should get a 40% pay bump because the government is pushing for it and the unions are pushing for it? Or do you think that people should be paid based upon the value in which they provide to an organization? If you're making, let's say, for example, $28 an hour, maybe it's because the business is only generating $50 an hour or $70 an hour for your labor. And don't forget, businesses have expenses. They have a lot of exposure. They have a lot of risk that they take. So if the business is earning, $50, $75 an hour and they're paying you $28 an hour or paying that person $28 an hour, well, it's justified, right? If the person is not satisfied with that, then they should find a way in which they can make that business $50 an hour, $75 an hour, $100 an hour, where that salary, that wage is justified to say, you know what, look, I'm making you $400 an hour, this makes sense, right? And if they're not satisfied, you can easily go out there and start a business, start something, and the market will justify your value. But what do you think about this? Do you think that this is the right play where you simply demand 40% pay raise, you take 13,000 workers and go fully on strike, or do you think this is the wrong way to go about it? Drop it below, hit the like button, add me on IG, and if you want to fix your credit, we'd love to help you. My company, GreatCreditFast.com. That's GreatCreditFast.com. If you have late payments, medical bills, charge-offs, foreclosures, bankruptcies, repossessions, anything negative on your credit report, do not let it sit there. Go to GreatCreditFast.com. One late payment considered report upwards of 7 years, and pull your score down a whopping 180 points. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let a couple little items get in the way of your potential. Go to GreatCreditFast.com. Catch you in the next video.